Strange things happening on the sun the same time. The silver is repeating a cycle in history. Let's take a look at silver prices during the Black Death, 1335, and what else was happening with agriculture at the time. Do we see a repeating cycle? And just finally, a week past winter solstice, and you thought we in the West didn't worship the sun. This is part of our DNA, the sun, and how it affects our planet. Consciousness, anyone? Cat video inbound, YouTube monetize it. It's a cat video. Strangeness on our sun. Mr. BBB333 pointing this out. 131 angstroms. Back on the 23rd, it took this very unusual bulge in the center of the sun. And I thought that is very strange itself. But, could this be something of a plasma petroglyph that was referenced prior to a whole black hole sun? Is this what we're getting to here? Not sure. Anyway, that has dispersed and it's over on the limb turning away. Still a remnant there of some magnetic instability, but that bulge has gone. SDO looking at you today, the 28th. So I went to the Helio viewer and I did look back, and indeed on the 23rd, for about 24 hours, this bulge was on the center of the sun as it moves around. And you have to ask, what kind of energies was this pushing? Because at the exact same date, Kilauea going to about at least 1,500 feet into the air, erupting mud volcanoes across Asia and South America, both along with this pressure. And these are very small pressure differences that are causing mud volcanoes for eruption, not gigantic VEI8s that will block the sun that shall come in tune Indonesia wave. Can I throw the wave at you? I just want to relax today. A moment of zen in the sunlight in the world of madness and change at the moment. Speaking of that, electrified skies, I really do see plasma petroglyphs right here in front of me. Electrified skies along with amplified magnetic field and some sort of things behaving strangely in our crust. It all mixes together, as above, so below. And I was very clean. Bridges are going to decouple, and so will pipelines as we get into the crustal anomalies. And here we are, California, natural gas. Landslide ripping it apart. I don't know if I'd even be one remotely close. One wrong move and all that gas, kaboom, at one time. That's how they were throwing evacuations. Moab, waterfalls. I don't even know if those two can go into the same sentence or not. But we start to see it everywhere. These record floods coming back that haven't been seen in thousands of years. Multi-thousand-year events on par, on a daily. Floods ripping off. You might have thought that was a safe zone. Or is it magnetically driven? And the galactic core, i.e., the center of our galaxy, has a toroid field, and we are passing right between that ecliptic plane going and changing energies. Perhaps that's one of the cycles that's making civilizations disappear. Mongolia, China, Karakoto, they call it the Black City. A metropolis for its time, now buried in sands, and we're just seeing this occur again and again. Now, water's returning to these desert areas, so everything that we've known in terms of stability for the last 200 years and how our planets behave, plant dates, harvest dates, all these things are now going out of kilter is the best term. So being governing bodies that have dynastic wealth that's been pulled through for centuries or millennia for certain families, would you not know the cycles were here and you would distract the populace with certain, messaging that you might own through the media while you prepared for this continuity event? Are the arc doors ready to close is the question. Everywhere you look, there's not a single spot that you don't see a discontinuity of what was considered normal or stable. It's all unstable now. And as I was looking for timelines, I came across this video here from Anton Petrov. Major discoveries about the origins of the medieval plague. I dived in, a great video, you need to watch it. Goes into this report right here. Climate-driven changes in Mediterranean grain trade mitigated famine, but introduced the plague to medieval Europe. We've all seen the headlines talk about Ozempic and similar miracle weight loss shots, but What most people don't realize is that major analysis just found out that people who stop taking these weight loss injections gain nearly all their weight back within a year. That's the catch. These drugs only work while you're on them. They're expensive, and the moment you stop, your body fights back. This is why I like BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate, and everybody these days is obsessed with weight management results. GLP-1 helps my body naturally trigger the same hunger-controlling, craving-reducing signals that Ozempic would, without needles, prescriptions, or the scary side effects. It also helps reduce hunger hormones, supports fat loss instead of muscle loss, and helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels. For a limited time, you can grab a bottle of BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate right now for 40% off only at trimwithadapt2030.com. Plus, you receive a 60-day satisfaction guarantee and the free express shipping on subscriptions. Once again, go to trimwithadapt2030.com or click on that link in the description box below. And they even have tree ring data, and those blue areas are cellular structures that are so dense and so tight together that it showed almost 2 years without a summer right there. So the premise was the famines began failing crops. So obviously the second year without a summer, the stockpiles are gone. They're getting into famine. The Venetian areas and all of the trade routes that were owned by the Pope said, go get us food anywhere you can. They had a blockade on the Black Sea. They're like, open the blockade, bring us in Russian grains back then at that time. Open the Black Sea, let it roll. Get grains anywhere you can from anywhere. And as those grains came in to feed the European populace, starting in Italy, so it was all about the trade routes, alleviating the famine, but also spread the disease at the same time. And that's what the crux of the paper is. So I'm looking, all right, I've done a couple of videos on Africa becoming wetter. So I wanted to see, going back to 1300, this chart here includes that this is a shift in rainfall. So on the right side of the chart, we're at the 0 line, which is approximately today. It's a few years old. But going back in time, if you see the 1000, each one of those ticks is 200 years. So if you go 1 tick, 2 tick, we're around 1400. And yes, there was a drop off in rainfall at the same time in southern Arabian Peninsula, which is Oman, Yemen, southern Saudi Arabia, that correlated with this cold period and subsequent Black Death period. Now, if you come over to the 1600-year rain record in northern Arabia, which is far north, is up near Iraq and, getting north there out of Saudi Arabia, we start to see something around 1300. There's the seismites, only reference of it. And then as we move forward to the same approximate period, on that average over 500 to 1821 average rainfall, you can see there's a precipitous drop right around 1350. They start to scale off there. This absolutely shows that it was more widespread than just Europe, the disruption in crops, disruption in rainfall. So in a very dry place, and the rainfall was disrupted, obviously in the Arab Peninsula, Arabian Peninsula, that is going to have an effect too. There's all kind of population migration with that. I had different population migration stats where they were going back about 3,000 to 4,000 years. Anytime it gets dry, people move. Another thing that was interesting on this textile industry, driving the price of sheep and invest in textiles. If you had a time machine, 1335, those individual candle spikes going up are pence, or the price for that sheep. And you can see right around 1308, you start to get spike, 1319, 1330, 1341, and we get a drop off. So we got that drop off where it says like 1297 right into 1300, significant overproduction of sheep. There must have been tremendous amounts of food, because animal husbandry, probably right when you see 1264 to 1275, somewhere right in there on the left of the chart. Also, an enormous amount of animals were produced. Oh, wait a second, or maybe not, because we look at 1341, you see a precipitous drop off there. That was Black Death. So all those people disappeared. Hence, there was no demand or less demand for the sheep. But what we see is we enter the 1350s. Population increases again, demand increases again, and inflation just rocks this place. Textiles also goes vertical, along with what is the rudimentary considered looming of sheep's wool to make clothing and that sort of thing. Dovetailing right into that, this is where the agricultural workers demanded higher wages after the Black Death because there was very few people left and they were being paid in silver, pence, shillings. I think it was 20 shillings for a pound sterling. But the real agricultural wages rose. Now you notice they dropped off in the same periods when the amount of sheep had dropped off. We come into the Black Death right there around 1340. Why did it rise for the wages? Well, there were less people, so they could charge more. And this is where labor rights and a lot of things started to come in. Right in that middle demarcation line of 1350, things changed. There just weren't enough people to grow the food so they could ask anything they want. So here's how it worked. The Black Death changes European agriculture. Many workers were needed to grow and harvest grain, so some lords began to raise sheep instead. Raising sheep required fewer workers, and there were more customers for the meat and for the wool clothes. As their incomes rose, people were able to buy more vegetables, fruits, and clothing, and you got that spiral. Somebody had a better performing asset than vegetables and farm labor. So this was all predicated on the silver of the day, the shillings, the pence. For an example, now this is for the Black Death here. English silver mint output, just like the U.S. Mint, Royal Canadian Mint, Perth Mint, whatever mint it is. This is the English mint, the silver mint during that time. From 1306 to 1310, they minted 125,000 pounds, let's say, sterling. But that plummeted from 1326, 1330 down to just 381 pounds sterling. Then it did recover after the Black Death was finished. Remember, so many people disappeared. About 25%, 30%, depends how you look at the numbers. Some say higher, some say lower. But the British Mint was back on at 7,000 pounds sterling back by 1350. Coinage shortage and inflation and people stockpiling the silver. Gee, what's happening today? Now, post that event that, wiped back the population of Europe, some, up to, let's say 30%, we'll agree on that. Some places say 60%, but I'm going to go on the low end, 30%. English silver mint from 1341, again, was starting to increase as we came out of the Black Death. 1345, 1355, back up to like 5,000 or 17,000 pounds sterling. And then once they got out of that 1340s mid-period, they were back over and above that 150,000 pounds sterling, which was higher than 125,000 pounds sterling. So you can see the subsequent decline in mintage and coinage, and then the subsequent increase after that. Very similar to today, the U.S. Mint was not producing as much, although it was mandated from previous administrations. Don't mint to the full amount to satiate all supply. Shortages everywhere on the planet, just making the news just tremendously everywhere now. And as is now, people were taking their gold, silver in to trade for something else of daily needs. But here's one thing I want to get back at is the spot ratio was 12-1 in the 1290 AD period, and then it went up to 14.2-1 by the mid 1320s. We sit at 66 or 65-1 now. If this is going to come down and be equal, if gold price does not rise anymore from 4,500, then we're going to be looking at silver going up at least on a 4x, and it's about $80 now. So 8 times 4, $320 an ounce. Just by using this simple calculation on a napkin, not financial advice, it's napkin math. Come on. But where do you think a safe zone that we don't know about? Serbia and Bosnia, 1370s, Venice was using their mines, so they must still have silver production that we don't know about. It's a little bit, but in a very expensive silver world, Bosnia and Serbia are going to be vastly wealthy with all the silver they can pull out of the ground. And a last chart for you here to really solidify that nail in the coffin. Silver arrivals in Europe and European production. All right, well, they had hit and milked their mines across Europe. Right around 1350, it kind of went, you see how it just dips off that cliff and goes almost to zero around 1400. Then it starts to come back up a sliver, and around 1500, we're recovering. Silver from the Americas starts to come in, meaning Peru, Mexico. Anywhere there pilfered metals from South America and Central America. That was the new metal supply coming in. So They were able to become vastly more wealthy because they were pulling in something. It was like grabbing a comet out of the sky that had never been there, made of pure metal, and pulling it back to the earth. Suddenly there's a new supply of it. There's no more going over there to get it. Like the entire world is on a world system now, and it's stretched to the end. The monetary system is in a reset. Again, not financial advice. Just, if you just look out, silver and gold have always been money. There's a crunch on silver. They need it for manufacturing. If they can't get the actual physical silver, they need to shut down their supply lines. They shut down the manufacturing supply. The products physically stop from companies. They go bankrupt then. They're going to pay anything to get that silver to continue it. But the difference is this European chart here shows there was another place they could get it to pull it in. Right now, the only place they can get it from is like the ETFs around the world. The vaults stored, Delaware, for example, Texas, those kind of vaults. Those are big liquidity pools. ETFs are liquidity pools, and you, the public, are a liquidity pool. If they decide to, there's, billions of ounces out here in hands and in ETFs. If it comes down to the military getting their silver or you keeping yours, you know who's going to win every single time. Prepare for that. You've seen through the past what can happen. But you're always going to need to grow your own food. Spring planting's almost here. TrueLeafMarket.com. Heirloom and organic seeds for any grow zone on the planet. That link's in the description box. As well as the link to sign up for the Thursday Night Live show notes, 10 bullet points of what we talked about for 2 hours, subjects just like this. Those links are in the description box. Click and go. I do appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of the video. See you next time. Bye for now.